Yes, this is another creeper landslide build, but no uniques required. I believe it has more burst damage than the crone variant, because you are giving up some big damage stats when you equip crone over like a rare act. I think the build really holds its own, and due to its high burst, you can get away with having to put a lot of resources in defenses. You basically try to kill the mobs quicker than they can damage you. So in dungeons, you can just run through packs of mobs with one trample, and that one trample is usually enough to kill all of them. And for this build, I made a graphic detailing why I took skills or the required aspects that make this build. I will have it linked in the description and comment below. I want to go over the main skills and core aspects that makes this build. Our main skill is of course Landslide with Primal Landslide passive skill, so that we're able to build up terror mode whenever we crowd control anything. And then dish out more critical strike damage and guaranteed crit chance. And then we have our trusty old Poison Creeper, which when coupled with Subterranean aspect summons landslides on active cast, which with the help of Pack Leader we can reset whenever we crit. And because we are running Primal Landslide, we have guaranteed critical hits, which in turn means more chances to reset Poison Creeper. And on top of that, we automatically build up a lot of terror mode when we activate Creeper active, since it immobilizes every enemy it hits. We will also do more earth damage to everything Poison Creeper hits with the help of Subterranean aspect, 10% increased earth damage. And then our next big skill is of course Trample. We will couple this skill up with aspect of Trampled Earth. Whenever we use Trample, we also summon landslides. But Trample has a fairly long cooldown. This is when Symbiotic aspect comes into play. It will allow us to reduce the cooldown of an Earth skill, which Trample is now, due to aspect of Trampled Earth. Whenever we activate a free skill with a Lightning skill, which is our basic attack, Lightning Strike, and with that we can activate a free Earth skill due to our key passive Nature's Fury. So with this we're able to spam Trample and cast more landslides for us. These are the main skills and aspects that makes up this build. Now I want to show you a bit of how the build plays. So this build revolves around crowd controlling the enemies and bursting them down before they can react. So we will start off by using our ultimate skill Petrify first, and with the help of Inexorable Force Malignant Heart, we're gonna pull everything in. Usually they all get dragged into the left side of your character, so you know where to aim your landslides. So after they get pulled in, you want to use your Poison Creeper active. The active will summon free landslides and also make the enemies take more earth damage. And right after that, we have enough time to maybe cast about 2 landslides on the clumped up enemies just to get more damage in. And finally, we can finish them off with Trample. And with the Barber Malignant Heart equipped too, all the mobs and elites should just pop after one rotation. So that is the playstyle for this specific build. A little bit different from the Crone variant. So for the rest of the supporting aspects for the amulet, I went with aspect of retaliation. Your core skills deal increased damage based on the amount of fortify you have, and we have a lot of fortify. And subterranean aspect we went over already. For my second run, I put in crash stone aspect. Earth skills deal increased critical strike damage to crowd controlled enemies. And for the weapon, try to have a two-hander and try to get aspect of trample earth on it. But sorry, the text on this is wrong. It's not 80%, it's 160% if you put it on a two-hander. So you want to put it on like a two-handed axe. And in the boots I put in symbiotic aspect. Definitely need this for the build to work. For the pants I put earth guard aspect. So every time we crowd control something through like Poison Creeper active or Petrify, we add like a barrier amount to the next earthen bulwark that we will use. So we can basically double the amount of barrier we can have with earthen bulwark. And in the gloves I put an aspect of natural balance. Casting a storm skill grants your earth skills 45% increased critical strike damage. So again, you can try to weave in like a storm strike before you use Poison Creeper active or a trample, for example, to get that crit damage. And in the chest I went with aspect of disobedience, get a bit more armor, and in the helmet I went with aspect of mending stone, just to increase the duration of earthen bulwark by another 6 seconds, and whenever we kill something it replenishes our barrier. So I've gone over the main skills and how they work, and for the rest of the skills for defenses we're gonna take earthen bulwark, and for this build we're gonna max it out because we will be taking some aspects that really boost the power of earthen bulwark. And to increase its effectiveness further, we are going to be taking 3 points in Vigilance. We get a damage reduction for 6 seconds after using Bulwark. And for the passive skill points, we're going to take all 3 points in Wild Impulses. Your core skills will cost more Spirit, but it will deal increased damage. And then we're going to take all 3 points in Iron Fur. And for the rest of the passive skill points, we want to put 3 points in Wild Impulses. More damage to core skills, it'll cost a little bit more Spirit, but it's worth it. And then we want to take all 3 points in Crushing Earth. Earth skills deal increased damage to stunned and immobilized enemies. And we have an AoE stun when we petrify, and we have AoE immobilize when we use our poison creeper active. And then we're going to take all 3 points in stone guard. Whenever we have fortify over 50% of our life, our earth skills will deal 12% increased damage. And to make sure we have fortify over 50% of our life most of the time, we're gonna put all 3 points in safeguard. Critical strikes with earth skills will fortify you for 7% base life. And with this build, you get fortify really quickly, just by activating poison creeper, using landslides, and activating your trample. And then we're gonna take all 3 points in envenom. Poison enemies take additional critical strike damage, and we poison enemies through our poison creeper active. And we also want to take savage trample. We gain 40 spirit after casting trample, so that it allows us to spam more landslides. And then we're going to take all 3 points in natural disaster. Earth skills will deal increased damage to vulnerable enemies. And then all 3 points in resonance. Our landslides will do 18% increased damage after we use a storm skill, which is our basic attack, storm strike. And we're gonna take all 3 points in heightened senses. Whenever we trample, we get a damage reduction against elites for 5 seconds. And then for our key passive, we're gonna take Nature's Fury. This is which allows us to lower the cooldown of trample through the use of symbiotic aspect. Okay, now for the gear. So I've listed all the affixes by their importance. Like for example, for helmet, you want to look for cooldown first, and then max life, then total armor, and so on. And in this build, we will be running barrier generation because we will be running all 4 ranks in Earthen Bulwark and have two aspects to support it. And as usual, for the chest and for the pants, you want all damage reduction stuff and max life, or you can also go for total armor. And the glove is probably one of the most important part of the gear because we can add 4 ranks to landslide, so you try to get that there. And then for this build, you want to just try to stack as much critical strike damage as you can from all sources. Crit damage from gloves, crit damage from the rings. And then even though we have terror modes, we still want to stack crit chance. And another stat you can put in is also lucky hit, just for more poison creeper resets. And for the boots, you want move speed, and you can also get barrier generation in boots, so you can get that there. And the next important gear is the weapon. For the main weapon, you definitely want a 2-handed axe, damage against healthy enemies, because this build is all about burst, right? You want to burst them from 100 to 0. I've listed the offhand, but it's probably best if you didn't go offhand and just went 2-hander, just so that you get more damage in aspect of trampled earth. But for the main hand, you want crit damage, vulnerable damage, core skill damage, and try to add willpower if your main stat. For the gems and hearts, for weapon, I went with emerald, critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. For the armor, sapphire, damage reduction while fortified. For the amulet, we went with barber. The barber is currently the best malignant heart, and you definitely want that in your build. And for one of the rings, I went with revenge. We get a bit more defenses when you use Earthen Bulwark. And finally, like I mentioned before, inexorable force. This is a must for the build. You need to pull everything beside you to make landslide hits very effective due to its short range, and inexorable force will allow you to do that. For the spirit boons, we went with wariness and iron feather, a bit more maximum life for more defenses. Avian wrath, of course, we need more critical strike damage. And then you definitely need Pack Leader to reset the cooldown of your Poison Creeper active so that you can spam it. And then finally, Calm Before the Storm. Nature Magic skills have a % chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skill, which is Petrify. So whenever we use Landslide or whenever we trample or activate Poison Creeper, we have a chance to reduce the cooldown of Petrify. For the Paragon boards, the first board that I went in is Earthen Devastation. Earth skills deal increased damage to enemies inflicted by crowd control. So anytime we use Poison Creeper active or when we use Petrify, we do 30% increased damage to all enemies that are inflicted by those. And then we went into all the damage nodes on this board, like damage to crowd control, critical strike damage to crowd controlled enemies, and then more critical strike damage here, Earthen Power, and another critical strike damage to crowd controlled enemies. And we're also going to get the armor nodes here. So we're basically grabbing all the nodes on Earthen Devastation board, just except damage taken over time reduction. And then the next board you want to aim for is Heightened Malice. That is going to give you a big damage boost, because we have some poison source from Poison Creeper. Whenever we activate it, the surrounding mob gets poisoned. So we do have a good uptime on Heightened Malice, and that's 45% increased damage, so you definitely want to grab this one. And then after that board, you want to go into the Inner Beast board. You're not going to grab Inner Beast, but you just want the Glyph node there. And on the Inner Beast board, there's a lot of armor nodes, so you want to grab all the armor nodes on this. One armor node here, here, and I also grabbed the critical strike damage node up here. and also 10% physical damage, which landslides are. They are physical damage. So you want to grab those on this board. And then the next board I went into is Thunderstruck, just for the glyph node. And then finally, if you have points left over, I went ahead and grabbed Ancestral Guidance, because in this build we will be using our spirit, right, from our landslide, so we can proc this. That's 30% increased damage, so you want to grab that as the last board. And then for the glyphs, the first glyph I went into is Exploit, because our only source of vulnerable is from Storm Strike. We don't have stuff like Hurricane or Cataclysm for our vulnerable debuff, so we definitely want to grab Exploit here. And then after Exploit, I went into Earth and Sky just because it fits well on this board because of the willpower needed. So magic skills deal 10% increased damage to crowd control of vulnerable enemies. And then the next glyph you want to grab is Spirit to increase your critical strike damage. And then for my fourth glyph, I went with Undaunted. 10% damage reduction the more fortify you have. So all in all, the build is pretty damn solid even without crone. Single target damage is also really high just due to its high burst, and I guess the barber plays a part in that. AoE damage, I'm giving it a full meter, just deletes everything that's been pulled near you with the help of Petrify and Inexorable Force. Survivability could be better, but it's definitely not squishy as we do put a lot of investment on keeping Earthen Bulwark strong by maxing it out and having 2 aspects to support it. Clearing speed, I'm giving it a near full just because you can run through Nightmare Dungeons with Trample. Since usually 1 is enough to kill any normal mob, you don't need to turn back and like trample backwards to do more damage to them. Just trample your way through the dungeon. But yeah, that's the build. I hope you guys have fun with it. I will have default builds and my graphic linked below, so you can check it out there. And if you like the build, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want more of this type of content. And thank you guys again for watching.